Ba. Oh, yeah? What else?
Skaterade! Welcome to the Skaterade podcast. I'm Jasmine.
I'm Mac.
I almost forgot to say my name again every time. What even is my name? Um, so today we're here with the amazing Krystal Roames. Is that how you pronounce your last name?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's Rome. Some people say Romes.
Okay,
I'm
we're
like,
here with the
no.
amazing Krystal Roames. I realized I never said your name out loud before, so had to check. And Krystal is a Brooklyn native. She's 37, like me, and she's a new mom who is known for her
Yay.
garage skating sessions, parking garage skating sessions with her amazing spins and dips.
Oh,
And by
I miss
day,
them.
she is a social worker. So let's get into it. How did you get into skating? Tell us about your skating journey.
I am a pandemic skater. Actually, I learned to skate when I was younger. Like when I was coming up, like rollerblading was a big thing. So I got a pair of rollerblades. I was doing that like as a kid through like my teenage years, and I knew how to roller skate too, but I wasn't as into that as I was into rollerblading. And then I also really loved watching ice skating, like with my grandparents. Well, really my grandma. Grandpa didn't really care about ice skating, but me and my grandma would like watch, Christian
Hell yeah.
Magucci and Oksana Bayol like on Saturdays, and that was kind of like our thing. So I always like had a love for skating, but I think, as I got older, I'm kind of like, well, that's a kid thing, so I can't do that anymore because I'm becoming an adult, So there was a lot of shame around skating, like, oh, that's a little kid thing, even though it was something I really enjoyed, I put it aside. And then the pandemic hit, you're a teenager and it's kind of like that's a little kid thing, adults don't skate, or at least when I was coming up, I didn't really see that. So I felt like I had to put it aside in order to move forward in my life. But then the pandemic hit. I was working as a program director for a building with people who have histories of homelessness and trauma and a bunch of other things. But I was a program director there, and it was just a hard time. It's like I'm really supposed to be managing this building of like 100 and something people and somehow making sure that nobody gets COVID. The people that live there, my coworkers, it just felt like a lot of responsibility. And I knew that I needed something to do. Like I was never a person who was big on like hobbies. Like I'd read and, watch TV, but I didn't have like a thing that I was really into before this happened. And then I think I was like looking on Instagram, and like that it was a big thing seeing like skaters like Anna Coto, um the other skater's name, but the one in the yellow short.
I don't know. By Yellow Shorts?
Do you
Oumi
know what I'm
Janta,
talking
maybe?
about? Yes, yes. I saw her too skating during the pandemic. Yeah. And I was like, oh my gosh, they look like they're having so much fun. Like it's like dancing but on skate. And I like to dance, and I knew that I like to skate too, even though I, thought I had like grown out of it. And I'm like, well, these are adult skating. So that, let me do that in my free time. I don't have anything else going on. Like I lived in at the time in Jersey with my husband and our dog. But, it was a weird time during the pandemic when it's just you just have a lot of free time somehow while also working. But like when you're home, like you're just I don't know, I found that I was like stressing out a lot with work. I was on call, and watching the news was really stressful. It's just like constant crisis for months and months, and I was like, I need something to do with myself. So I ordered a pair of skates. I got a pair of the rose gold Impalas, and I ordered them off of eBay, I think, for like double the price because at the time, like it was so hard to get a pair of skates because everybody had the same idea. Like, oh, let's go back to skating. So I got them and just started
That's
practicing
awesome.
in the garage.
So, as a pandemic skater, I found myself getting accustomed to a really solitary skate practice. As social as you can be, I sense that you also deeply appreciate solitary
Mm,
skating. What was the adjustment like for you as more and more things started to open up and
mm.
skating together became more accessible to people?
Right. Yeah. It's definitely
Yeah.
it's still an adjustment for me. I feel like I love skating by myself. Like I feel like it's been helpful in like me developing my own style and, being comfortable with that. I also feel like, I don't know, like it's good to learn, definitely important to learn from other people. I think that was one important aspect of gaining more community in New York and like meeting other skaters and going to skate events is like you learn so much from other people. But I think it was important for me to learn on my own first so that I could be confident in myself and confident in what I'm doing. It was just helpful for my skate journey to kind of figure it out on my own and kind of like be comfortable in like whatever movement I want to do. It doesn't have to be a copy of somebody else. Um, but also like in skating, I feel like everybody, like you could learn the same move, but do it in like a ton of different ways, which is another thing that I appreciate about the skate community. Everybody's so different. Everybody has different style, a different way of doing things. And I think that just helped me gain more confidence in myself.
You have a very distinctive style, and I feel like your style is defined by flow and a lot of spins and dips. How would you characterize your personal style while you're skating?
Yeah, I love spins. I love dips. I very much like the way I skate depends on like the music I'm listening to. I love spin. I love the freedom of spinning. That's why I feel like for me, like the music is so important. I love rinks, but it also kind of sucks because like you don't get to play your playlist, or you might not hear music that you really like at the part, the event that you go to. You might really like the company and all that, but you're like, oh, this song, I hate it. Or like, I want to go slow. I don't want to, or I don't really want to listen to house right now. I'd rather listen to R&B but yeah, like I feel like music very much informs like my way of skating. I think ice skating in a weird way also does. Even though like roller skating it definitely feels different from ice skating. There's just I like the spins. I like flow around the ice rink, or well, I guess it would be the roller rink. But sometimes it's weird because like in rinks, that certain kind of skating is not appropriate. It's like I can't be in like crowded rinks, because like I'm kind of like
Yeah.
all over the place in the way I skate, and it doesn't really match with the etiquette of what's going on, So I think that's another reason why I like skating alone or like in parks or like open spaces with other people, but like still having some space so I'm not like, you know,
Yeah.
spinning into somebody or like, being freaked out about doing like a transition and someone's right behind me.
It keeps popping up, so I'm going to name it. This review I saw of the rink at the Standard Hotel recently, and how someone was like, "Oh, you walk up and you really want to hate it because it's just like empty and there's like no DJ and there's like nothing." But then they were like, "But actually, there's a lot of space and you put your headphones in and it's like it hits." And I'm like, that would be, I feel like my vibe too. I'm similar. I'm like, I kind of want to have control over what I'm listening to. I want more space to do like three turns and more of the like figure stuff or things. So I feel like if you end up in New York, maybe that's your spot to go to at some point, so you can be around others, but have your music in and enjoy the floor.
Yeah, that sounds fun. Exactly. Exactly. It sounds like there's still community there, even though like you can still do your own thing.
Do you have any type of like dance or like sports background other than skating when you were younger? Did you like pick up any other things along the way?
Not real. I like to dance. I was definitely like in high school. I was involved in
Cool.
Cool. Yeah.
the twirler team, like the baton twirlers. Um, and then in college, I was Yeah, I like used it. I was in a Miss Caribbean Queen pageant in college, so I was able to do like my baton twirlings and have my Miss
I really want to see
Congeniality
pictures
moment.
from that.
I think there's a video somewhere. My one of my friends has the video. I have to find it.
Ooh.
It was to Rihanna's SOS.
A pageant queen.
No, I didn't win. I didn't win, but I tried it. It was fun. It was
Do you
yes.
feel like you would see skaters like Sid Blaylock or Marwa sort of as your peers then? Because they're kind of like showgirl skaters, and it sounds like you kind of have that showgirl skater in you too.
Oh my gosh. I would never put them in the same category. They've been skating for years and they are amazing. I would never they're so good. Like I look up to them. But style wise, I guess maybe there's a little bit of showgirl in me. Yeah, like I guess spins and dips are
Yeah,
very like showmanishy, I guess, if that's a word.
exactly.
Um, but they're like
Word.
big moves, and I like those kinds of moves. Yeah, I love like being able to turn multiple times, and I want to be able to learn like my ultimate skate goal is to get like a sit spin. Um, I have to work my way up towards that though. It's I love watching, but yeah, I guess it would be like my skate style. Going back to the original question. Would be, yeah, pretty flowy. I would say there's some ice skating
Amazing.
and dance, definitely. And I think that all plays because I was in the dance team in college. Soca Down Screw.
Soka.
That was the name of the dance. Yeah, but that's another reason why I love skating. Like I can dance on skates. I can express movement in a different way that you can't do. I mean, you can dance, of course, like without skates, but there's a different kind of movement
Hmm.
that
Yeah.
I really enjoy.
So, what is it about skating then, sort of this time around, that's made it stick for you? That's been the thing where it's like, yes, I love this. I'm going to keep doing this. I really want, you know what I mean?
Hmm. Yeah, I think there's I don't have the shame in it anymore. Like I don't. Maybe when I first started skating, like when I first started, coming out to the parks, it would kind of be like, oh, what does she do? I felt like people watching me, and it's like, oh, I must look so awkward, and I think that's part of why I was so comfortable in the garage because nobody's like, that was a private garage. Like nobody's in there but the people that live there. So like they would
Yeah.
see me, but they're like, oh, there's that roller skating lady. Like in the building, I was like the roller skating lady. Um, but it was like a funny thing. I didn't feel like awkward about it or anything, And sometimes my neighbors would be like, oh my gosh, like you've gotten so good, like they saw me from the beginning, and then they see like my
Yeah.
transition through or my journey through skating and they're like, "Oh, wow." Like, "Okay." Like, "Go ahead," So it's like I was able to gain confidence like in the quiet and without people watching in the garage. Whereas I feel like if I was like in a park or in a ring, it would have been harder for me to like let go and look silly and learn things and be okay with falling on my face. When I go to rinks and sometimes I see people who are first learning how to skate, there's so much shame in falling, or looking dumb or looking like a novice, like you don't know anything. And it's like all of us had to learn, all of us were beginners at some point. All of us were wobbly and had terrible falls or even might have hurt ourselves, while skating. It's sad because I feel like sometimes at rink, like someone might fall and
Yeah.
they're like, oh, this isn't for me. I'm never doing this again. And it's like, no, just keep trying. Like I see little kids. I'm always at the family. I like to skate at like the family days, like that's to me like the quietest days in the ring. So I'll see like little kids, with the trainers and they're just flying all over the place with all this confidence and no fear. and they fall a bajillion times. And to the point, like, I'm used to skating, I'm used to falling. But when I see them fall, I'm just like, oh my God. Like, that looks so painful, but they get back up and they keep going and they keep trying. This thing that kids have where it's just like, okay, I fell,
So
I fell,
resilient.
I'll get up and try again. Yeah, I feel like it's important for people to feel comfortable and like a big comfort for me to do all those things and be okay with looking silly because I didn't feel
This
like
makes
I
me
had
think too
eyes on
about like how, as we get older, we end up internalizing all of these things. And it's like, it is like when you're a kid, you're not thinking about that shame isn't there. And one of the things I love about skate culture and
Mhm.
especially pandemic skaters, like, because so many people came back to it as adults, especially as it blew up. Not that people weren't already doing that before, but I just have seen more of it. And I think it's like such a
Mhm.
brave thing to be like,
Mhm.
I'm going to go against some of the things I've
Right.
been conditioned to be ashamed of, or
Yes.
the ways I've been conditioned towards these things. And I'm still going to let myself try this thing and put myself out there. And I think like, yeah, it's interesting. I appreciate you making that distinction too, and really noticing the ways that, yeah, kids,
Mhm.
we're not thinking about it as much when we're young. So I just think it's so brave when people start or even just come back to it when they're older and are willing to go there with it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think what
Mhm.
also helped me was seeing that there are other adults doing it. It's not like just me, being immature. There are adults like people in their 70s, people in their 90s skating.
Mhm.
And I'm like, oh, that's possible? That I want to do that. So like, and also like, I guess looking at like, if I'm looking at like my inner, my teenage Krystal, right? Like, I think she would be so excited for me, and just be like, yes, you know? So like, I feel like it was helpful for me to kind of like embrace things that I used to enjoy, like embrace like my childhood and not shamed by it, and like really just embrace it. I'm an adult. I can do what I want. And, some nobody can shame me about skating or,
Yeah.
don't be mad because you don't know how to do it kind of thing.
Yeah,
It's like
exactly.
it's why be mad at
I
something
love to see
joyous?
you healing the inner teenage Krystal. And that made me think about something that you posted on Instagram, which was you were having a skating session at a basketball court. And you said that you were playing some Backstreet Boys. And you were talking about how when you were younger, you would have been embarrassed by that. And you talked a little bit
Uh-huh.
about, being a young Black woman and being faced with the idea of like being called an Oreo because of the way that you talk or the type of music that you listen to. And I had a very, very similar
Mhm.
experience. What has it been like
Mhm.
shedding that sort of restraint that you had on fully being yourself?
It feels good, to listen to the music that I like, feel weird or feel that people are gonna look oddly at me. Maybe they might like, oh, the Backstreet Boys are corny. Why are you listening
Yeah.
to that? Because I enjoy it. That's it. I feel like I'm at an age now, like being 37, I'm leaning more into just being comfortable and doing what I feel like after having a baby, I've even noticed like the way my style has changed, like just comfort, like just what I need, what's comfortable. I'll wear the same like rinky dink sweater for like 3 days in a row because it has a bunch of pockets and I can hold my phone and my chapstick and put a Mars bottle in my other pocket and be good, and I'll go
I
outside like
love it.
this too. It's fine. There's a freedom in just not caring about that kind of stuff. It's like, you want to look good,
But
I
it
like
was super
comfort.
iconic too that you were skating on a basketball court listening to that song because I don't know if you remember the music video for Quit Playing Games, but it was on a basketball court in the rain. It was like a Backstreet Boys wet t-shirt contest while they were playing like a pickup game.
Well,
Yes.
I'm obsessed.
So good.
I didn't even remember that.
Yeah.
I didn't even remember that.
Yeah.
That was
Deep cuts, deep cuts.
right. Well,
Oh,
I was
okay.
more of
I
an
was too.
NSYNCer, but
It was instinct for me.
Yeah.
Sorry to Backstreet Boys.
Hopefully the Backstreet Boys aren't listening to this.
I hope they are. I hope they
Yeah,
know how I
yeah.
feel about them.
Oh my god.
I mean, I like them too, but I think I like NSYNC more. That's just, you know.
NSYNC does have better choreo, for sure. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
might just be
Yeah.
it, actually. That might be it. Yeah, like I like the dance
That's usually how I
musicality
felt.
to
I
it.
mean, for me,
Yeah.
I was just like, they just have the bops. They have the bops. They got the bops. That's all I can say.
Yeah. Okay.
They do. And they have and Justin, even though Justin
Yeah,
isn't my favorite
same.
so much
Yeah.
anymore.
Definitely Team JC between those two. Speaking of the entertainment industry, you've had a few forays into entertainment yourself. You've appeared in some skate videos, some commercials, music videos. So do you see yourself sort of expanding into being an entertainer on skates in the future?
I don't think so. I don't think it's really for me. Yeah. I mean, the
Mhm.
experiences I had being I was casted to be like background for Betty,
Yeah.
which
Love
is like
that
a
show.
skateboarding show on HBO, and that I was like, oh wow, and that was really fun. Yeah, it's a good show. But yeah, I was casted to kind of what did I do? I skated with one of the skateboarders. I think her name was Nina. But yeah, I skated with her to like body yaddy. So like I just followed behind
Cool.
her and like on a skateboard, which was cool. And then we shot a few like Halloween party scenes, which was cool. But I feel like maybe since having my daughter,
Mhm.
I just don't have the time. It's like you have to step away from like your full-time work to do more of that
Yeah.
kind of like entertainment kind of work. And sometimes it can be kind of like disappointing sometimes. Like I had been asked to be on a show, like a daytime show, and I went um and skated for them, and that was cool. But then like they never they never like
Oh no.
broadcasted what we did. And it's like they told me like after we filmed, like, oh yeah, it's gonna be up tomorrow. So like I told all my family and all my friends, and my grandma has like the TV station ready to watch, and like it didn't come, it didn't happen. And I was like, oh, that kind of
Bummer.
sucks, and like I had used my own money to travel and I was pregnant, it kind of taught me that like this is entertainment. I guess that's kind of how it works. You know what I mean? So I wasn't like angry. I just feel like I don't have the time to dedicate. Yeah, it's very on and off, not consistent. That's what I wanted to say. I feel like
Mhm.
when I skate for work, there's more pressure
Yeah.
behind it. And, I skate for fun. Like I've had friends who like have seen my whole journey, do it, and make money off of it. And I'm like, yeah, that would be cool. But number one, I don't think there's that much money to be made in skating. I could be wrong, but it just doesn't seem like
Yeah.
unless you
A lot
have
of
like
hustle.
put your all into it. I'm not sure how much, and yeah, and then it's like I skate for the fun of it. I skate for the joy of it. I skate for the freedom of it. And I feel like when I'm doing it for work,
Yeah.
that's not there, and then it's not as fun for me. And then I don't want skating to be something I don't enjoy. It's like one of my true hobbies, like one hobby that I really have that I enjoy, and I don't want capitalism to ruin it for me.
Hard.
So I don't really think I'm really interested in entertainment.
Yeah.
It's fun
It is
for
like
me.
such a hustle. And like I'm in nightlife, and like even that is just not super consistent. And you always have to kind of be setting yourself apart. And
Mhm.
it's like you have to love the lifestyle of it in order to like make a living off of it. So it can be really challenging.
One question that I have
Right,
about the
right.
line between like big productions, like being on Betty, like you said, for instance, and community productions, because I know you were in a production of The Wiz on roller skates. What was something like that? Like, yeah,
Yes,
tell us about
yes,
that.
that was so much fun. Because I was pregnant then too. And I got to basically just work. Well, some of it was like we were doing choreography, like learning through Zoom, sending each other videos to learn the choreography. So while we all had our own lives going on, so like that was like a challenge, but I feel like everybody met that challenge. And also the cast were people, some of them were people I knew, like the skate
Yeah.
community is pretty small, so it's like people I knew, people I was comfortable with. It's like, yes, you're learning choreography, but you're also, for me, it was like, oh, I get to go hang out with my friends for the weekend. That was really fun. I forgot the art program was that we did that. Yeah, but it was a great show. Our director was amazing. The head of the roller,
Good. Super good.
super good. Super
Yes,
good is
yes.
her Instagram name. Yeah. And she was also
Yes.
in Disco Aces. But yeah, just the community and like being able to, it's amazing that she put that and even had some other skaters from Florida. Rocks World came and that was great to meet and get like skate knowledge. And even after the show, like we got to hang out. We went to Brooklyn Skate together and just vibed out. It was really nice to get away and do that. Because at the time, I had just moved from New York a few months ago. So it was good to
Yeah.
spend time with my people again after feeling a little homesick. And I had just learned that I was pregnant. So that was.
Do you feel like into the future you would take other opportunities sort of as they come, even if you're not necessarily like seeking them out or it's not like the thing you want to be doing? Like, is it still something you're interested in doing if and when it comes up, just in terms of like production stuff?
Yeah, I think I would be open to it. It just
Sure.
depends on what else is going on in my life because I feel like right now I just have to prioritize a lot. So like my daughter Amara comes first in everything. Am I gonna have the space for it? Who's gonna watch her? Do I have enough milk for someone to watch her? Yeah, but I think I would totally be open to things in the future. Just because I had a baby doesn't mean that skate life stops for me. That I'm definitely not skating as much as I used to. Like I used to skate 4 days a week, in the evenings after work or sometimes before. Because I had that time is super precious. I mean, time, every other weekend or once a month to skate now is different, and it
Yeah.
feels
Yeah.
different for my body too. Like I see the
So
changes.
you are a Brooklyn native and you kind of built up your skating chops here in New York City alongside the local skate community here. What has it been like for
Mhm,
you to move to Maryland and kind of switch that up? Because when you're
mhm.
talking about the Wiz, you mentioned how you put on that production with friends and how that sort of made it even more special for you.
I would say like I love moving to Maryland. I love home, of course, right? But I feel like calmness, the freedomness in Maryland, like more stability. But I really miss the skate community. I really miss is that, there's definitely a community here in Maryland. I feel like I haven't really tapped into it as much as I could just because my time is limited. Um, and I also feel like when I first moved, I was homesick for like the skate community. So I was kind of like, well, this isn't the same.
Yeah.
So I don't really want to do it. But some people have been really great, like people who follow me who reached out when I moved, like, hey, do you want to meet me at the rink? And I was like, "Oh, yeah, oh my gosh, yeah." So I've made some skate friends. But I think when I first moved, I
Yeah.
got caught up in like, it's not the same. And it's not gonna be the same. I'm gonna have to get used to that. Um, it's not the same comfort that I have in New York, and I have to figure that out. I'm still working that out. And also, I'm in Baltimore, the Baltimore part of Maryland. I think there's a skate community here also, but I'm not as familiar with it as I am with like DC, which is like an hour drive. You know what I mean? So like all that comes into play also where I feel like right now I've been
Yeah.
skating a lot solo when but I I do miss that community piece because it's so big in New York. There's so many different skate groups. I wouldn't say there's a huge amount of places to skate, but there's definitely more than there were when I was in New York before, like 2 years ago. Like now they have like Flippers World. That wasn't around when I was still in New York. I think they have something called the Dome, which I've never been to, but that's another ring. There's House Rollerway, which I got to visit 2 weeks ago, and I was like so impressed, like, and so excited for like everybody who's still home, that you get to have another place to skate because that was not a thing before.
You went to the Sid Blaylock burlesque event, right? That's the event you went to?
Uh-huh.
Cool.
Yes, yes. It was so good. It was so good. And getting to see some familiar faces, getting to see like more talent there. That's what I missed. And I haven't experienced that in Maryland, but that's okay.
Yeah, because you really kind of had a skate family here.
hmm
Like, I know you had a really good relationship with a local darling, roller skate queen.
hmm
And I saw that you posted that y'all went on a road trip together and kind of have like a sisterly bond, it would seem. Yeah.
Oh yes, yes, yes. Yeah, we went to
Yeah.
Philadelphia. Like we drove to Philadelphia. Is it a few summers ago? I feel so old now. But we went to Philly to go to Top Lock and Drop It. She has skate events sometimes. And is also a good friend. Um, and she was having an event, so me and Asia drove over there to support. So I love getting to see her and spend time because I feel like Asia was she one of my first skate friends? I feel like I met her at one of Amy's events. She had a butter roll event, and I saw Asia
Yeah.
and I recognized her from Instagram, and I was like, "Hi." She's like, "Oh my gosh, I know you," and I'm like, "I know you too." So that's how that began. Like, even for her, like things have changed too, where she's moved with her wife and everybody goes through transitions. And I feel like with skating, there's a lot of in and out, life happens, but we always come back to it when we have the space and the time for it.
Speaking of transitions, it's my understanding. So obviously you had a child, and then also you now have your own private practice, a private telehealth practice as a social worker. So it sounds like you've also kind of transitioned in other areas of your life. And obviously you've alluded to like, I have other priorities that have shifted how I relate to skating. I personally have an interest in learning more about kind of your telehealth practice and sort of the social work side of things. And because I'm an MHC, so mental health
Yeah.
counselor.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm curious for you if you want to go into it, kind of what took you that direction, wanting to do social
Mhm.
work, and then also like if there are ways that you feel like that sort of ties into like how you relate to skating or how you relate to like the skate community.
Wow. I started an interest in social work, honestly, because I didn't know what I wanted to major in when I was in undergrad. I knew that I hated math. I am terrible at math. I hate numbers. That nothing in that category would have worked for me or science. And then I was like, well, English, I don't really know what I would do with that. And then it came down to social work, and I didn't really know what it was. I didn't really know what it meant to be a social worker, but I was like, well, it seems like something that might be like, I might have like some diversity in. And I also I don't know, I guess in general, I just like to help people talk to people about what they're experiencing. I feel like I've always been a good listener, and that translated really well into social work. Yeah, so that's kinda like how I got my feet wet in social work, and I was kinda like, "Oh, I like this," So I stuck with it. And then in social work, there are so many, like, branches within it, but I think I always knew that I wanted to do clinical work and, like, be a therapist and kinda help people process things. I think also part of that is, growing up and having mental health illness within my family and not really understanding it, but wanting to know more about it. I think I also had an interest there. It's funny because like as you get more into social work and therapy, you realize like oh, well, I have all this knowledge now, and that's great, but that doesn't really change your family. You know what I mean? So, kind of learning, I guess, the limits of social work, like you can know a bunch of stuff, but I can't be a therapist for people in my family. I can't be a therapist to people I know or friends. So like, there's an element of frustration there sometimes because you want to be able to help people who you can't, but I had to learn that through the journey. And then as for like, I guess, roller skating and social work. I'm sorry, what was the second part of the question?
That's okay. I think I mean, I don't know if this is something that's true for you, but I know for me, like with some of my clinical, it's kind of the same stuff you're talking to where it's like, well, now I kind of have this lens of like, I can see certain things a little differently. So for me,
Mhm.
sometimes when I'm in community, having the experience that I have as like a mental health counselor, sometimes it just like helps me extend a little more compassion to people or kind of understand like how communities relate to each other. Like when you have
Mhm.
certain information, you just can see things a little differently. So I know for me, I
Right.
think there are elements to like that I sort of bring into how I relate to community or even how I relate to my own journey because of my own understandings of myself. So I guess I'm just
Mhm.
curious if there's like, yeah, anything that sticks out to you, like maybe how you bring that to how you view skating, or if it's impacted how, your skating journey at all, to kind of also have that background or that knowledge or these experiences
Mhm.
in clinical work or in community settings.
Yeah, I think if anything, it's made me definitely help me to become more empathetic. And also, like, I feel like I can see more, like, a lot of us skaters are dealing with stuff, you know what I mean? And have things that we want to talk about and process with people. And kind of like skating is sometimes an outlet for that. It can be a tool for dealing with some of the things that we have heavy on our hearts or on our mind. Because I feel like
Totally.
for me with skating, yeah, like when I started out, it was during the pandemic. I was stressed out. I was worried. I was having panic attacks before going into work. Like just skating was a way to process some of that stuff, and after not long after that, my grandfather passed in 2020, not COVID related. He was, 96. He was like my second father. I grew up in his home, so it was something skating was something that was helpful for me to kind of like process some of that. So I feel like skating, it brings in a way, sometimes it can bring hearts together, and people who are looking for community and connection, which is part of what I love about it. Yeah.
Skating
Uh
definitely has helped me to process grief too in a major way.
yeah.
Like I lost my
Yeah.
dad in 2019, like right before the pandemic started, and
Mhm.
those sort of physical outlets definitely really help a whole lot. And I've seen you talk about your grandfather a lot on Instagram, and your connection to him is so beautiful. You spoke about processing your grief through skating, and after losing your grandfather, you laced up and celebrated his life by going skating.
Mhm.
How does he continue to influence your pursuits in skating and other parts of your life?
I don't know, my grandfather, I just want him to be proud of me. And I was lucky in that, like, before he passed, like, a few years before he passed away, like, he said, "Me and your grandmother, we're really proud of you." And I was like, that's all I want," and I think he would be so happy to see me skating and just being free, having fun, because that's all he wanted from me was to be happy. So yeah, I even my practice, I named it after him and my grandmother, Foreign Therapeutic Services, 'cause that's his last name.
Oh,
Just another way of honoring him because he was the one who really pushed me. I got my undergraduate degree in social work, and in my mind, I'm like, okay, I'm done. I got a college degree. That's all I need to do. And he's like, well, when are you gonna go back to school? And I'm like, "Oh gosh," but I didn't really think it was gonna happen because I was knee deep in student loans. I'm like, "I can't afford another round of it," but, like, somehow I just things lined up. I ended up with a job where they had, a scholarship that they would pay for your, master's degree at Hunter College, and I applied for it and got it, and I was like, "Oh, okay," I
Hell
got
yeah.
the degree, I didn't have to pay anything for that degree, and I'm like, "Well,
That's awesome.
yeah,
Crystal, that's
it just, like
amazing.
came together, So I'm like, I have to honor him in this way because I wouldn't have put forward on this path unless he had said something.
I'm so glad that you had that opportunity. I'm so glad that existed, for people, and also that came through for you. Like, that's so
Absolutely.
fucking
It was a game
and
changer.
that you went for it. Good job.
Thank
A plus.
you.
A plus, everyone.
Thank
Hell
you.
yeah.
Yeah, and that was a push too because that
Mhm.
scholarship was available at a job that I had where I was doing like outreach work. Like I was going to people's homes who had mental health issues and just, following up with them as a case manager. And I found out about the scholarship and I went to my supervisor and asked her about it. And she was very dismissive about it. Like,
Don't like that.
she was like, well, you have to make sure that you reach all your goals, and you meet all these people. And basically, like, I wasn't keeping up enough to be able to do that and go to school, and I was like, oh, okay. And it wasn't long after that I left that job and went to another job that had this scholarship. And my supervisor there was supportive and encouraging, and I was able to get it. There can be so many roadblocks along the way sometimes, but I'm glad I didn't let that person keep me from it.
Yeah, and I think that also speaks to like the importance of having people around us that believe in us and are not gonna like like be dismissive in those ways, or kind of be like, well, I don't know if you can do it, and just having people around that are more willing to be like, yeah, if you want it, like, go for it, like, I'm here for you. And I'm again just so glad that you were able to find your way to that
Exactly.
space and yeah, pursue that. That's so cool.
Yeah, I was really fortunate in how those things kind of lined up. I still work full time at a group practice, and that's fine. And I enjoy the work that I'm doing there, but I also want to earn the income that I feel like I've worked for so many years
Yeah.
to earn. There's so much guilt, I feel like, in social work, in making money. You know what I mean? And it's like everybody is working to make a living, but there's so much guilt put on social workers and I think therapists too in wanting to earn a decent living. So I think that's part of why I started my private practice because I feel like I was asking for something reasonable where like employers weren't willing to. So I was like, well, I'll make the space for myself
Yeah.
then.
For listeners, if you're not familiar with like the social work field, the field of mental health counseling, a lot of times, it's a very long process to get your licensure, especially if you want to be like a clinical social worker and do some of the one-on-one work. If you're trying to if you're a mental health counselor, you have to get your license to be legitimized. And during that process, it's often very exploitative. You're often very
Hmm.
underpaid. Finding a supervisor that can work with you can be really hard. Finding a supervisor that's actually
Yes.
supportive can be very hard, and you have to be supervised to get your licensure. So it's a really tough process, and it is a field
Hmm.
where there's a lot of like pressure, I think, to self-sacrifice for the greater good, but it leads to like really, really high levels of burnout. And it means that a lot
Yes.
of people who are marginalized or who have various struggles in their life, I know for me with disability stuff and some of my like trans stuff and some other things, like it can actually make it so that those folks don't even make it to their licensure because the process is so strenuous. So just to give listeners that context too, like, and really honoring Krystal, what you've
Right.
been through and worked through in order to get to where you are. Just wanted to name that for people who are unfamiliar. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. I remember when I was working at a residence, like the people who lived there would be like, oh, you make so much money. Like, no,
It's
no,
like, no,
I
I got
really
a side
don't.
gig to pay for this job, basically, but thanks.
um, exactly. Exactly. I remember I was working in the building and also working part-time at DSW. Like, what are you
Mhm.
talking about? But yeah, it's work that I enjoy though. And I like talking with people about the things that they're experiencing and just being like a sounding board, like just a space for people. Cause I feel like sometimes people are like, well, I can talk to my friend or I can talk to my family member about what I'm experiencing. But I feel like sometimes people, especially if you're a family member, because I do this to my family members and friends who come to me like with things that they want to talk about, you want to give advice. You want to tell them what to do. You want to be like, leave the trash person that you're
Mhm.
with, but as a therapist, you can't really do that, and I like being, even though sometimes it can be frustrating because I still want to tell patients sometimes, like, leave this trash person. But there's also a lot of value in being a safe space for that person to be able to share what they're feeling and what they're thinking without being judged or without being told to do what you think is right.
Yeah.
Sometimes people just need to figure it out on their own.
Yeah, and just need a container to do that in and to know that it's safe to do that. So I can really appreciate where you're coming from with that.
Exactly.
Yeah, it sounds like it could be a really fine line in chatting to people in your personal life, like as a therapist in some capacity, because I bet it's really easy for people to weaponize that against you later. And sounds very stressful. You guys are doing God's work.
Yeah, I've literally had someone be like, you're a therapist, like this and this and this and this. And I'm just like, yeah, and I'm also a person and I'm not relating to you as a therapist right now. So please don't put that on me. Like, I'm not here to therapize you. I'm your friend. Like, I'm going to give you my opinion. Like, please don't make me wear that hat. Like, no, thank you.
Right. Therapists, we're not holy. We're not perfect in any way. All of us have our own things and are probably seeing our own therapist. So yeah, like we are works in progress too.
I feel like you kind of need a therapist to be a therapist, yeah?
In my opinion.
Yeah. Because you're holding a lot from other people, So it's like you need a place to process the things that come up for you. Because even though like you're supposed to be holding for other people, there are things like what we call countertransference, where what someone else, like what a patient is saying to you might affect you in a certain way or remind you of something related to your own personal life, and you might have feelings about that, because we're human, like as much as we're not supposed to have judgments and things like that, we're human beings, so those are things that I think are important to process in our own supervision and in our own therapy. Because even sometimes, a lot of the time, actually, like when I'm meeting with patients, they might be experiencing something that I can really relate to, and I'm like talking to the patient, but also talking to myself in a weird way, you know? Like even recently, I was talking with a patient about something, and I just heard myself like I'm trying to tell the person to not be limited by their thought about, imposter syndrome. And I was thinking about that for myself in relation to my private practice. And I'm like, well, you're telling this person to just do it. Like, it's so easy. Like, why don't you do it? you know? So it took a while, but I was like, all right, like you can help yourself. Maybe that's a selfish kind of thought, but like helping other people, you help yourself also.
Yeah, it's very parallel process. I worked through so much of my own stuff by like supporting clients and being like, wow, they're going through something that's like so similar to what I deal with. And even whether or not I'm even giving them, helpful things, like just seeing them come back the next week and be like, I figured it out this way, or like I'm doing this or that. I'm just like, okay, I'm going to take a page from your book, perhaps, and I think like there's this idea in therapy that it's like the therapist is like, yeah, like this like person who has it all figured out, who's like on a pedestal, and they're like helping this other person who doesn't have it figured out. But the truth of the matter, for me, at least in my therapeutic work, is like none of us have it figured out. I have some training that helps me hold this container for you. But the truth of the matter is that we are both human and we're both learning and growing together. And that's where like I think this work can be like really, really beautiful if you can hold the frame well. Yeah, appreciate it.
Absolutely.
I feel like it must be a lot to hold space for what people think therapy is going into it versus what it actually is. When I started therapy for the first time ever when I was 35, something like that, maybe 34. And I was expecting to, well, no, it wasn't the first time ever. That's a lie. The first time I stuck with a therapist consistently. I had like a couple one-off visits with other therapists. But coming into it, I really just expected the therapist to like tell me like exactly what was wrong with me, hand me this diagnosis of this is what's wrong with you, and this is how you can fix it. which is not how it is.
Wouldn't it be nice if it were that easy though? Sometimes?
Right. And then you like look at them.
Yeah. I don't even have to talk. They're just going to look at me and they're going to go.
Here's your treatment plan.
Yeah,
Go.
fully.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I see a lot of that. Like you said, with people who it's their first time, it's like, okay, so what do we do?
Yeah.
And really, I just generally just tell people like, this is a conversation, like this is your space and we're going to process some things. I tend to be very like conversational in my therapy. I'm like, I'll ask you questions, of course, but you're the star, like you are the expert on yourself. So it's for you to bring things that come up, or what are things that you want to work on? What is there a problem that you want to work on? Do you want to explore some things about your job, work on your assertiveness? Are you having like issues in your relationships that keep coming up where, you're exploding at people and you're not sure why? So like talking about those things and just going from there, but there's no magic pill. If there's
Oh,
something
man.
going on, like, sometimes I feel like people come right. Like I feel like sometimes people come looking for that, like, okay, fix
Yeah.
me. And it's like, no, that's not what we do.
Yeah,
We work together.
Yeah.
It's collaborative.
Yeah.
so much of my work is really literally just sitting with people and trying to help them understand that there is nothing wrong with them. And they're sitting there being like, but what's wrong with me? But like, what's wrong with me? But what's
That's
my
me.
diagnosis? And
That's
it's me
me.
being like, they have nothing. Okay, we can get down to like maybe where some of these things come from. We can get down to like, the parts of you that are trying to protect you and like how those things show up. But like, actually it's for me, the work is really around helping people understand there's nothing wrong with you. And that you can choose to behave differently, or you can choose to move through the world differently, or shift how you think. But that doesn't also inherently mean that like what you're already doing right now is wrong. It's actually probably what you're doing right now is you're trying to survive. It's just not working for you anymore. Right. So it's like doing that work is like so much of the therapy work, especially because so many people come in being like, what's my diagnosis and how do I fix it? And it's like, babe.
I'm a menace and I need you to stop me.
Right. Right. Not even to mention, I can't diagnose you yet. Like, I just met you. We just talked once. Like, how do we diagnose after that? Insurance companies might want that, but it's not realistic.
Yeah. I feel that.
And a lot of the time, it might just be like what we call an adjustment disorder.
I was just gonna say, I was like, slap an adjustment disorder label.
You're going through a lot of transition.
That's the first one.
Exactly. Yeah, because it's like, sometimes it's like, oh, well, this person has depression or this person has anxiety. And it's like, dude, how long have you, there's a process for all of that. And like, it seems like we're just going through some changes and want to process them. It might not exactly be depression or an anxiety disorder.
Changes are hard.
So yeah. And I feel like the past few years, everyone has been going through changes, a lot of changes.
Yeah, definitely amplified in this time for sure. Speaking of the wider community and everyone going through changes simultaneously, there was a time where there were a lot of places for skaters to have that outlet to maybe blow off some steam. And these days, there's definitely a shortage of rinks. Definitely here in New York City. I don't know if it's the same in Maryland. What therapeutic role do you think more permanent rinks could play in New York City or otherwise other communities?
I think it would be awesome. Because I know Roller Wave just opened a rink recently, but I don't think as far as I know, it's not permanent. I think it's closing in June or something.
That's what I heard. Yeah.
Something like that, or that's when it might end. I could be wrong. Okay. And like I think there's a Prospect Park ring. There is the one that I think it's in Harlem.
Riverbank.
And then like Brooklyn Skate. Right, Riverbank. And then I think there are a few places. I'm not sure if Skate Mafia still does the thing at Lincoln Terrace Park, the practices at Lincoln Terrace Park, or, sometimes people like the community has
Yeah,
different things. But like formal rinks, there's not much in
exactly.
New York
Yeah.
at all. Maryland has several rinks. I think it would be amazing to have more permanent rinks in New York, like just to have other places for people to go to de-stress. There's so much tenseness,
Yeah.
so much tenseness to unleash. Just looking at things going on in the world right now, and I guess there are always things going on in the world, but I don't know. I feel like there's more of a tenseness lately that
Yeah.
I've been feeling, where it's like people are so
Hmm.
angry, quick to anger, quick to pull out a gun and shoot a kid in,
That
in the
was
in the head, like
was
because he rang your
awful.
doorbell. Like,
And then shoot him again.
what? Yeah, like, and not to say, right, right, and I mean, not to say that that guy is going to be
Right.
at the rink, right? But I feel like having rinks and having a place for people and kids, to have after school activities and, just a safe space. I think it's so important.
Absolutely.
I think it would make a difference for a lot of people. Yeah. I think in New York we've gotten used to like since we don't have the rinks, figuring out our own
Yeah,
spaces. I think it would make a bigger difference to have like more space, like a rink for kids to go to after
I agree.
school or for adults to unleash after work,
Yeah, I
you
think it's
know.
kind of absurd that there isn't a all season sort of indoor space for the community that fits the scale of the community better. But why in, you know, the greatest city in the world, as it's often called, um, in the greatest city in the
Mhm.
world, why don't we have a permanent rink space, And this is just something that I think has been an instrumental
Mhm.
force
Mhm.
in Black communities for generations. Like, there was a time where the rink was
Right.
spawning so much culture in the Black community, and not just skate culture, but music. There's so many like 90s and 80s hip hop artists that were born in
Mhm.
the rinks. And it's crazy to think of like that
Right.
cultural power that it used to hold, and the
Right.
fact
Right.
that I want to see it get back there, is what I'm trying to say. It's very upsetting.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. I feel like New York is kind of pushed to the
Hmm.
wayside a little bit in regards to skating, which is not. We have such amazing talent, like so many
We
talented
do.
skaters, but there's no like place for, it's like when winter comes, it's like, okay, where can we
Hmm.
skate? It was such a big like kick when Brooklyn skates closed because so many people were going to Brooklyn skates, and then there's no place else for us to go in the winter
Hmm.
as a community, really,
Yeah.
So I think it might have come back maybe somewhere else, but when that happened, I was like, well, where are we gonna skate? It's like nobody. I don't know if nobody cares or there's not enough. I mean, people advocate, but like nothing really happens. I've heard of rinks that might open
Yeah.
and it doesn't happen. And I would love to see more rinks in New York.
And this is my humble opinion, and I feel like this is something that isn't really supported enough. I feel like there needs to be more involvement and lifting up of younger voices, because I feel like sometimes the sort of political piece gets in the way of like building community, like especially, like in a space like
Mhm.
Brooklyn Skates. Like, I know of an incident where there were too many people skating. And so they did that gender thing where they're like, okay, all girls, all boys. And I had a friend that said,
Mm.
you don't know what my gender identity is based on what I look like. So I'm not going to get off the rink. And this friend
Right,
was told that they could
right.
never come to Brooklyn Skates again by the door person. And I feel like a lot of that stuff kind of
That's
yeah, a lot of that gets in the way of like young people really being able to participate in making the roller skating scene something that can grow and evolve. And I feel like there's a lot of resistance to that, and I feel like that gets in the way of the community's growth. Sorry, I get really upset about that topic.
Right.
Yeah.
No, this is understandable. This is like, yeah, you want everyone to feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Everyone, but yeah, it's kind of like broken up in different spaces. Like New York is huge, and there's like these different factions of what's already a really small community, so it'd be nice to have a place where all those ideals could come together, all those different styles could come together. Um, yeah, it's lacking in New
Yeah.
York. I feel like,
I feel like you're a skater that exemplifies that spirit because you can hang out with the old heads and get down. And then I've seen you host events with Orbit Collective, which is a queer skate collective here in the city. And I just feel like we need more skaters like you. So you have to move back.
I wish I could come like on a part-time basis,
Yeah.
like just teleport.
You're the community
Teleport for
consultant.
weekends or like every other weekend.
Nope.
Oh, I love
But I
that.
feel like you bring something to the community that is so sorely needed. Like, in fact, when I first started following you, the reason was at the time I was trying to get better at toe spins, and I'm still just meh at them. But at the time, I was first trying to get toe spins down, and I asked a friend, like, oh, like, have you been seeing anyone who has like a particularly good technique that I should watch? And this friend said, oh yeah, you gotta watch this skater Krystal. She's so good and she's just so nice and so positive. And that's exactly how I experienced you. And it wasn't in a way where it was like toxic positivity nonsense. You were talking about, what you were going through in that day and what your experiences had been. And it was just so refreshing and you were just so welcoming. Like, I remember I DM'd you and I was like, would you skate with me sometime? And you did say yes, but we never met up, which is sad. But you did say yes, which I appreciate.
Aww, we're gonna have to figure it out the next time I come.
Yeah, I want to skate with you so bad.
No, I mean, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. No, we're definitely, I'm going to have to figure it out. I feel like every time I come to New York, I'm like, I got to figure out like 4 people I'm going to hang out with before I leave.
Yeah.
Just because it's so like, I don't get to go a lot, but we're going to figure something
Maybe
out.
we could.
That's why I went skating. That's why I went to Rollaway that time.
Maybe we should have a
like,
Krystals in town skating event and everyone comes to you.
That's how it has to be sometimes. When you got people in town and you got like 4 days to be there.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Make it happen so then I don't have to go to all these separate places to see people I want to see.
Exactly.
Yeah. Maybe I could bring Amara with her skates too.
She has skates already?
Bring her.
No, not yet.
I was like,
not yet.
wow.
She has like little knit big. Oh, here's Amara. Amara, you want to come say hi?
Baby.
She has the cutest cheeks.
Come say hey. Thank you, baby.
Oh, baby.
Hey, hi, Mama.
Hi. Oh my gosh.
Look at that hair. She's got so much hair. Oh my goodness.
You see her? Does she eat? Is she good? Okay. She might be chilling with us for a little bit. Yeah, but maybe we'll go skating. Do you want to come to New York with me to skate? Yeah, she doesn't have any skates that fit now. We're good now, yeah. She has like little knit booties, but I think her toes are too big, too chunky for that now.
Little chunk. So cute.
Right?
So now that Amara's in the room, it's a good time to have this conversation, actually.
Yeah.
So in following you, I couldn't help but pick up on themes of metamorphosis in your skate journey. Because early on in your skate journey, you seemed like ultra tuned into skating, almost single-minded and sort of relentless in your practice. As an outsider, that's what you seemed like. And now, with being a mother and moving away from your established skate community, it seems like you're working out what your new skate routines are going to be and how they fit into supporting your family. Can you talk about how your relationship to skating has been changed or
Definitely.
reframed in honor of where your life is presently?
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely been a transition. I feel like when I moved, like I was trying to find skate spaces near me, kind of like start over again. Like where are spaces that I can skate and feel safe? There was a garage in the building that we were living in at the time, but the ground wasn't that good. And a few months after we moved, somebody was robbed at gunpoint in there. So I didn't feel safe in there anymore. I didn't feel safe being in a garage.
Yeah.
So then I would go to the parks that were nearby. And at the time I was pregnant. So I had to kind of adjust the way that I was skating. Like I wasn't trying to learn things anymore because I felt like there was more risk of falling and I didn't want to, hurt myself or have someone be like, see, you shouldn't have been on those skates with your pregnant self. So I feel like I was a lot more careful when I was pregnant than I would have been if I wasn't, of course. Um, so that was an adjustment. And as my pregnancy progressed, I was skating less because, your belly comes out, your balance is different. Things just feel different. I wasn't as flexible or as comfortable with certain things as I used to be. I was having like joint issues, kind of like, you'd feel like, like flashes, like in the, if I'm turning and I feel like a stretch in my crotch area and I'm like, oh, that doesn't feel good, you know? So I, um, but yeah, that was all a transition. And then, once Amara was here, then I had to heal for a little bit, kind of like just get used to being a mom first. And then now it's kind of like, I have a routine. I kind of know what I need to do with her, like on a daily basis, and you know, ha- I'm. But I'm also learning as I go because I don't know everything. Right now, I feel like I'm in a place where I don't skate as much. Like skating isn't so much a part of my life right now, just because I'm breastfeeding. So I'm always feeding her like at least every 3 hours or so, I would say, or pumping milk. On the weekends, sometimes, my husband will watch her, which is a huge help. And then I'll get to go to a rink or something like that. But it's not for many hours. I feel like also I don't have the stamina that I used to have. I get tired a lot more quickly than I used to. But now at this point, like, I don't think skating is over. It's not over for me. There's definitely a difference though in the importance of it in my life. And like, I'm trying to figure out, what that means, like even in my Instagram, I don't know if you could see like the confusion. I feel like sometimes I want to post pictures of my daughter, but then I'm like, well, these people don't care about my daughter. They want to see me skate, but I haven't skated in like 2 months. Um, but also it's like I want to get to a place where I don't care. It's like if you follow me because you like what you see and not because like I'm posting a bunch of skate things all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that has definitely changed for me where before it was very skate geared.
Yeah. That's something that resonates for me and that I think I'm sure resonates for some of our other listeners around when you're kind of doing one thing with your social media or you gather a bunch of followers that sort of like this sort of one facet of the things that you do, it can feel hard to bring in like other parts of your personality or other parts of who you are and feel like that's like welcome.
Right.
Not like welcome, but it's just like it's hard to integrate sometimes, I feel. And so then when we do go through these transitions, I think it can make it doubly hard, especially when we have community on social media, and so many skaters do because skating is something that is international,
Right.
and we learn from each other there and we hype each other up there and stuff. But it becomes hard sometimes with those life transitions to feel like, oh, like this is shifting in my life. How do I also shift maybe how I allow myself to engage, or can people shift how they see me too?
Right.
Is there room for that here when on social media so much of it is like appearances and sort of a little surfacey sometimes. So that makes a lot of sense. I appreciate you speaking to that struggle,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no problem. Because I'm like, oh, well, I had 13,000 followers before and now I'm like at 10,000. What does that mean? And it's like, I don't want to care. But I'm also kind of like, oh, like when people leave. And, I mean, I guess I don't see when people leave because I don't have some kind of tracker. But you do notice when you go from like 13 to 10 and it's like, oh, okay. But again, it's like I want people to follow those who have an interest and who are actually interested. And if it's not seeing baby Amara and cute pictures of her is not your thing, that's okay. And I am learning to be okay with that too.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, she's a part of my life. She's a huge part of my life.
Yeah, you want to keep the people that are there for the whole you too. I feel like that's a much more fulfilling audience anyway.
Definitely.
Exactly. Yeah.
I feel like that's a lot of the spirit behind this podcast too, is that we wanted to talk to people beyond just, who's doing what routine and what move and how many cool reels do you have. Like all that stuff is great, but at the end of the day, there's more to life. There's more to skating even.
Yeah, it's so much more.
Exactly.
I was just thinking like before we met, I was like, well, what are some things that I'm going to have to need to know about myself for this podcast? Almost it's like I haven't been doing the skating or doing, buying parts for my skates. I'm like, what kind of wheels do I use again? What are my favorite wheels? I don't remember, and it's okay.
It is okay. One big question I have for you is surrounding all the unsolicited advice that comes with the territory of skating and being in the skating community. Not to mention your pregnancy. So I imagine it was a backseat driving double whammy to skate while pregnant. How did that unwanted advice make you feel at the moment? And what do you want to say to unsolicited advice givers on the whole?
Yeah, like I would hear from people, especially once I had a bump, like, you're making me so nervous. I'm so nervous for you that you're going to fall. And it's like, be careful. And like, I understand the concern, definitely, because it's a concern for me too. I don't want to fall. But I also didn't want to be limited and kind of, women can be pregnant and be active. It's okay. There are women who like weightlift when they're pregnant. So it was kind of annoying, but also I understood where the concern was coming from. So I didn't take offense to it, But yeah, there's definitely a lot of advice, and generally I would just say thank you and keep it moving. I wouldn't let it bog me down. And I try not to think about it like when I was skating when pregnant, because I think one of the fears is not only hurting yourself, but also hearing, I told you so. You shouldn't be doing that. Why were you skating? And all of that. Thankfully, I didn't have to hear any of that. But it's one of those things that kind of like hangs around, So, like I said, it definitely changed the way I skated. I wasn't as adventurous with things, and I wasn't learning new things because I'm like, well, if I'm learning new things, I'm gonna fall. I'm more at risk of falling. So let me not do that. Or let me not work on the sit spins anymore because I definitely fall when I do that. And while I don't regret that, I don't regret like being careful. I was just happy to be able to skate.
Yeah, that's amazing. You spoke on Instagram a little bit too about how Amara stayed pretty calm inside of your womb while you were skating, which I thought was kind of cool to hear.
Yeah. Like I would just be she would just be quiet. Like she wasn't a big mover around baby. And she would just be chill while I skated. And then like afterwards she might like do some movement, but I feel like it almost made her fall asleep, like all the spinning and stuff.
Yeah.
So now like I'll play with her. Like she's at an age now, she's 9 months. And, I'll like pick her up and like spin her around. And I'm like, do you remember that feeling? So I'm excited for when she is walking and do that kind of stuff to like help her learn.
That's so sweet.
But it was a good experience. It was fun. And that was
Okay,
it.
cool. What advice would you give to other pregnant skaters that want to keep skating through their pregnancy?
I would still encourage people, like if you feel comfortable, if you feel, because that was one of the things, like sometimes people be like, well, I'm just learning to skate. And now I feel comfortable learning to skate while pregnant. And I'm like, if you have a comfort already with skating, I would definitely encourage that. If, you know, skating while you're pregnant, but I would be nervous to like start learning to skate while pregnant, you know? But again, like everybody has choice, right? And you know your body, you know what you're comfortable with, you know. But I would just say like if you're like really, really new, be careful, get your balance, that kind of stuff. But also like pregnant moms who are familiar with skating, feel comfortable, like do you try not to like get too tied up in like people giving advice or telling you that they're making you nervous or to be careful. 'Cause I feel like other people feel anxiety when they see you and they don't mean to, but they put the anxiety on you because they don't know what to do with their own anxiety about seeing a pregnant woman skating. And while, I understand the fear, like don't put that on on moms. They have enough,
Yeah.
and there's always advice to be heard, even now that everybody has an opinion, so like you are the mom, you know what's safe for your baby and for yourself. So go with that.
It's so true. There really is so much pressure because I know that while Marwa was pregnant, she continued skating, but she didn't really post it until after she had the baby because she was like, I don't want to hear this. Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. People can be pushy, especially online, because I even got that from like coworkers, and I'm like, get out of here,
Yeah.
like, why are you on my page? Leave me alone. Yeah, and like family members, but that's
Yeah,
expected.
yeah. That's kind of
But
different, yeah.
trying, I yeah, I feel like skating almost prepared me for that. Like my just learning not to be so worried about what other people are telling you or trying to say, that you should do. It makes me think of like people who shame other people for not wearing protective gear, and it's like, why aren't you wearing, if someone falls or hurts themselves, like, well, were you wearing a wrist guard?
Yeah.
Like, people fall and people get hurt even with wrist guards. Like I hear you, but don't shame this person for not doing that. It was a choice that they made. Okay.
Yeah. And I think it's also important to kind of acknowledge that, like, a lot of times the people who are being shamed or getting that type of advice are like women or like femme of center people.
It's
Like it
true.
so often is also this thing where it's just like there's not a lot of trust or respect for
Mhm.
like the bodily autonomy and like just autonomy in general for like women, for trans folks. And I think like when I think about pregnancy too, I think about that too, right? Like people not believing that you're like able to make your own informed decisions or something and just like
Mhm.
projecting that onto you. And it sometimes comes off as this thing of like, I'm just trying to help, I'm just trying to protect you, but it really can take away people's like sense of agency and autonomy. So like in general, there's also that piece that I think is important of just like, let's just like
Absolutely.
respect each other's like autonomy and support each other like where we're at rather than trying to like project our ideas of like what's best for other people onto them,
Yeah.
Right. Right. There's so much pressure in that area, I remember once um skating out of my apartment building and I didn't have any gear on or anything. And this man who I had never seen before, just was very like, you should be wearing gear. Where are your knee pads? I'm an adult. Don't Number one, don't talk to me like that. And you like, this is my body. I can put it on if I want to. I was just so like angered by this sense of like almost him having ownership over me, like telling me what I should
Yeah.
do. And I'm like, I don't even know you. It just feels so entitled to tell me what to do, a person that you don't know, you have no relation to. Like, Get out of here.
Yeah, I can't fully personally grasp where those impulses come from. And it usually comes under the guise of, oh, I'm just trying to help you. I'm just worried about your safety. I'm just worried about your health, so on and so forth. But there's a lot of body policing happening, and it's usually a cis male telling people what to do.
Yes, I think that maybe that's another part of what made me so angry about it was a white man,
That too.
and, I'm like, what? Who are you? How dare you? Putting the shaming finger down at me. Like it was just very weird to me. But yeah, and I feel like skating has been helpful in leading me to be more confident in that and not to like become a turtle in situations like that where, I feel like before I would have been like kind of like shocked and just, kind of like retreated into myself. Um, but now I'm just like, no, I don't have to, there's a sense of confidence that has come with feeling more like in touch with my body, more like confident, like standing up straighter because skating teaches you that, you have to have a certain posture to be, to not fall on your face,
That's beautiful. I love that.
But yeah, all of that, like skating has been groundbreaking for me.
Oh, that just gave me the chills. Whew, I love that.
Yeah, me too. I love this so much.
I have one more pregnancy related question. How did your first skate after giving birth feel?
Oh my gosh. It was so nice, like to have my body back to myself. You know what I mean? Like, because before I was skating so carefully, that even when I was spinning, I was very aware of like, okay, am I off my center a little bit? Let me, you know, I was just so aware of things and also having like, like joint pains and things like that. But once after pregnancy, I don't remember how long after I was pregnant. It might have been a month or two before I skated, but like it was so nice. And I think I only skated for like 15 minutes because, of course, my stamina was like in the ground, but it just felt so good to do it, you know? And I was like, oh, I can. It was almost like a confirmation that I could still skate. It's like I know I can skate, but like when you're pregnant, you have another body in you. So it almost I felt like not heavy, but just like this responsibility. And I wasn't sure if I was gonna be able to skate to the same level that I was before. So there was like some fear there. And while I don't think I skate to the same level that I used to in certain aspects, I can still skate. So there was some places like my toe spins are not what they used to be. And even my heel toe spins are not what they used to be. But I know how to do it. And I know that if I practice enough, I can get relatively back to that. So it was really a joyous occasion to be able to skate again and be like, okay, I'm still me. Even though I have a daughter and life is changing, I'm still me.
But I do want to emphasize for the listeners that haven't seen Krystal skate, if I could spin like Krystal on a quote unquote bad day, oh my God, I'd be so happy.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're amazing.
No, I love spinning. I love spin. I'm just happy to be able to skate.
Do you have a count of the most simultaneous toe spins you've ever done? Like how many revolutions you've ever gotten? Because I feel like I've seen you get a lot.
I don't know exactly. I can get a few revolutions. I mean, now it might be a little bit harder just because I get dizzy. Like since I haven't been doing it that much, I get more dizzy quicker than I used to. But I know I can work my way up to it again. But yeah, I don't know exactly how many. I just know like at some point I was like, well, I want to do 2. I want to do 3. And then after that, I was just like, well, it doesn't even matter. I just want to do pretty spins. Like I don't care about the number.
That's so cool.
Everybody has different specialties, like I feel like I can spin pretty well. There's some people who can spin. I'm just like my mouth is on the floor. And then there are some people who their transitions are like butter. I feel like skating is one of those things like for me, like I'll never be satisfied with everything I can do because I'm just like, oh, that's so good. Oh, they did that so well. Oh my God. You know what I mean? Like there's always something new to learn, something new to perfect.
I feel
Yeah.
like it's the source of so much inspiration and excitement, but also a lot of anguish. That whole like, what's next piece.
Yes. Yeah. Or like, you know, you could do something really well. I don't know, like when people go in the middle and they have like all these combinations and movements that they do. And I'm like, oh, well, I could spin. There's so many differences.
I do want to do like check with you and then see if there's anything else that you want to make sure we have time and space to talk about, or anything like you want to be able to like just throw out for listeners.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, if anything, like, I have a website for my private practice. If anyone is interested, Foreign Therapeutic Services.
Do you want to tell the listeners a little bit about your practice?
I work in the evening. Yeah. It's a telehealth private practice for people who live in New York. So if someone lives outside of New York right now, I wouldn't be able to work with them just because my license is in New York. I specialize people who are dealing with perfectionism issues, anxiety, depression, people who might have experienced trauma in the past or even in their present, family issues, and individuals I work with one-on-one. But yeah, I just like helping people process things, deal with life transitions.
Cool. Yeah.
That's really it.
Yeah. We'll definitely link your website.
And I want to close with a little bit of a skate philosophy question. What does skate like no one's watching mean to you?
Mhm. Skate like no one's watching. To me, it means a bunch of spins. It means like doing silly movements that make no sense. It means like putting on your favorite music, no matter how corny it is, or I mean, it might not even be corny, but like corny to certain people, like just not being worried about anybody else, just enjoying yourself, putting on clothes that you like to wear, um, just zoning out, just flowing. That's one of the things I love about skating is just the freedom in it. And just for me, I guess like being by yourself, being in the moment. Because even when I'm skating like in community events or like at the rink, there's a level of oneness, even when you're with other people. Sometimes it can flow, you know, because then I'll see like a skate scene and I see everybody like moving in unison to the same music, you know, and there's kind of like everybody's in their own world, but they're not. There's like this weird flow to it all, which I love.
I love that. Well, Krystal, it's been really fun talking to you. It was so cool to meet Amara and kind of indirectly meet your husband, even though we couldn't see him.
My love, Jacob. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. It was great to be here. And I'm really honored that you guys even asked me to speak with you guys because, you know, because I listened to you guys' interview with Marwa and I'm like, oh my gosh, she's amazing.
Yeah, so are you though.
Thank you. It's just so I feel like it's kind of funny for me because again, like I'm a relatively new skater in my mind, you know, and it's like seeing other people who have put years into their skate journey, you know, it's really an honor to be able to talk about my journey, which has been relatively short in
Well,
comparison.
I hope you recognize that you've done a lot in that short period of time. Like, it doesn't really show that you're like a new skater.
Yeah.
You don't skate like a new skater. I don't know if you realize that.
I know, yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
I'm just glad
you.
that you see it. I had to make sure.
I appreciate that. Well, hopefully the next time I come to New York or another visit, I can see you guys and we can all skate together. I
Yes.
love
If you're
that.
gonna like be at a skate event, let us know too, and we'll come to you. You know, we'll make it work.
Okay. I
I want to
will.
see you pushing the stroller on skates.
It might be coming soon. It's getting real nice out.
Well, I'll let you get back to your family. It was so nice talking to you.
Thank you. I hope to see you guys
Thank you.
soon.
Bye, Krystal.
Bye. Thanks for being here.
Bye. Thank
See ya.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Yay, we did it.
We did it. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in for our conversation with Krystal Roames. She's so amazing. We'll be linking her therapy practice as well as all of her socials in the show notes.
Yeah, it was such a treat speaking with her. I feel like, just to speak to something that she mentioned of like, oh, like we talked with Marwa and like, I don't know, just to reiterate, I think for our podcast, obviously we want to talk with people who have experience and different interesting experiences and stuff. But personally, I know for me, like it's really important to be highlighting skaters from all different backgrounds that do all kinds of different things, the people that are in it for like all the entertainment stuff and the people that are figuring out where skating fits and how it fits. And I really appreciate those aspects of this conversation today and really just like allowing a lot of flexibility and understanding that skating can plug into our lives in lots of different ways. I think like, again, for me, I'm like, it's really cool when I get to see people that are like skating all the time and doing all these cool things and accomplishing so much with their skating. But I also really appreciate people who are also like doing things outside of skating and really like, despite whatever commitments they have outside of skating, still finding time to skate or finding ways to have skating support them in the things that they're doing or building community. Because I think like, many of us are very multifaceted and it's great and it's beautiful if we can afford to and have the time and energy to like only be skating all the time. And like, that's just not real for a lot of us, like a lot of us have work commitments, family commitments, like things that we deal with that make it so like we maybe can't skate as much as we want, or in some ways can't like get to the places that we want to get with skating because of whatever reason. But that doesn't necessarily mean that like those stories are less worth telling or less interesting or anything of that nature. Do you know what I mean? So exactly, I think that's really kind of what I'm here for personally. And I just really appreciate, like the hustle that she's had, again, working multiple jobs, like trying to get through social work school, pregnancy, like all of it, on top of also staying connected to community and skating and whatnot. I'm like, always very impressed. By folks that can do all those things.
I feel like she has a lot of energy. She was speaking a lot to stamina, but I'm like, sounds like you have a lot of stamina to me. You're doing a lot of stuff.
And or a lot of balance and good boundaries around. Making these things work.
That too.
So thanks again for joining us, everyone. We always appreciate whoever tunes in. So on to the next.
And as usual, you can find us on Instagram at Skaterade Pod. And you can also, if you can, support us by buying a Skaterade sticker, which you'll find in a link in our Ko-Fi shop, which is in our link tree on Instagram. Again, we also have some new embroidered patches out, and all of that, buying those items and supporting us, goes towards supporting the podcast and continuing to produce and get this podcast out to all of y'all.
Mm-hmm. Which we love doing.
So
we'd appreciate any support along the way. And again, also, if you want to be interviewed, if you know anyone who you think should have this platform, should be interviewed, send that along to us. We love interacting on social media. Jasmine is perhaps better at keeping up with that than I am, so that's probably who you're talking to if you're messaging us. But yeah, please reach out as well. We're always happy to chat.
Yeah, I check the inbox pretty compulsively, so I'll probably write back to you in like 45 seconds. No, I'm just kidding. So unhinged. Yeah.
Thanks, y'all. Bye. What?
You're saying?
Oh, skate hard. Have fun.
Bye. Oh my God. So funny. Like, why are you looking at